Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The program will begin in 5 minutes. Please move to your seats and help us start on time. For the first time ever, more than a dozen TechNet Augusta sessions qualifying for continuing education credits will be recorded and hosted post-event on an exclusive free virtual channel. Additional information and a link to register are available on the continuing education page at the conference website. As a reminder, please set your electronic devices to silent, but keep them at the ready so you can text or email your questions for our guest speakers to the address on the screen, askmetna@gmail.com.
Booster flight instrumentation.
Hydrogen burn-off system ignition.
We have main engine start. 4, 3, 2, 1. And liftoff.
Mantech's launch support and mission training teams are an integral part of every launch at Vandenberg Air Force Base and Kennedy Space Center. We provide crucial geospatial analysis and intelligence capabilities across the NGA enterprise and Department of Defense organizations. Mantech is at the forefront of mission training as we work with our customers on all aspects of manned spaceflight. Nearly half of our workforce is comprised of former military, and we're proud to be a major provider of healthcare IT to the Veterans Administration. Mantech is the leading innovator in the field of predictive analytics. We know what to fix before it breaks, and have developed a maintenance strategy that streamlines the supply chain and maximizes the combat capability for the warfighter. With our advanced analytics support to U.S. Customs and Border Protection, we help predict who and what will be crossing our borders and when to expect it. Mantech is widely recognized as the expert in advanced cyber. Our advanced offensive cyber capabilities are ever-changing and evolving. Mantech's partnership with the intelligence community provides a unique ability to deter foreign adversaries. Cutting-edge defensive cyber draws from our extensive experience in offensive cyber. The threat is very real, the enemy persistent, and you don't get a second chance. Our federal, civilian, and military training in both our advanced cyber range environment and the persistent cyber training environments help protect our nation through real-world scenarios running real-world live-fire cyber exercises. Drawing on our extensive knowledge of cyber, we're now securing autonomous aircraft control and sensor assemblies on a component and platform level, rendering the systems impervious to outside interference. Making the world Mantech secure.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of AFCEA International and the AFCEA Greater Augusta Chapter, welcome to Day 3 of TechNet Augusta. As a reminder, please set your electronic devices to silent, but keep them at the ready so that you can text or email your questions for us this morning's panel to askmetna@gmail.com. Prior to the conference, AFCEA asked our network of industry partners to submit solutions to 8 problem statements provided by the Army Cyber Center of Excellence. We received more than 35 responses and selected 17 to be presented this week in the Engagement Theater in the exhibit hall. We have published all of the submissions in a compendium you can find by selecting Solution Abstracts under the Program tab on the TechNet Augusta website. We would also like to recognize all of our supporting partners for helping make TechNet Augusta possible. At this time, please join me in welcoming to the stage Brigadier General Paul Fredenberg, U.S. Army retired Executive Vice President for National Security and Defense, AFCEA International.
All right, if that doesn't get you fired up, then nothing's going to get you fired up this morning. Okay. All right. Welcome to day 3. How's everybody feeling? All right. Hey, it's been a great week, and we have a strong last day to close this great experience and forum out. And AFCEA is very proud to present this professional forum, this educational experience, and this team-building opportunity for all of our teammates here today, our government, our industry, and our academic partners. Over the last 2 days, we have heard from our Army senior leaders, operators, policymakers, requirements developers, acquisition professionals, and technicians from across the Army enterprise. All of them stood up here and told a story that weaved together on how they are transforming, aligning, and accelerating for the pacing challenge. And we've heard also throughout this last 2 days from our industry partners and our academic partners. This exchange of ideas and solutions, the building of understanding, and the deepening of the connections across these communities is going to propel our Army and the DoD forward at the scope, scale, and more importantly, the pace required to pace that challenge, pacing challenge. Now, all of these things, and I know you probably couldn't make it to all of the events or all of the sessions, but our Signal, the official media of AFCEA International, is going to provide daily news coverage, so check on those updates on the web. Recordings of the presentations in this room are also going to be, the ones that are authorized for release are going to be available post-event on the AFCEA website. And now it is my absolute pleasure to invite Diarrhea McGuire, the Vice President of Mantech Army Division, to introduce our closing keynote speaker.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the keynote event of the morning. I hope many of you have enjoyed the conference and gained some insightful things, but this morning's topic, keynote topic, is very timely. It is managing decision superiority over a pacing challenge. With over 50 years of supporting our military, Mantech understands the importance of unparalleled command and control systems, the impact of contested logistics, and the relevance of decision superiority. We partner with our clients to provide expert skills in analytics, cyber, IT modernization, cloud migration, and system solutioning. Many of our solutions are true enablers and secure systems and data operations across the services, and especially for the Army. We welcome the opportunity to share some of our capabilities and the challenges that they enhance or improve on and off the battlefield, and address and mitigate them to meet the needs of the Army's mission. Please visit our team in the room Walsh A directly across the hall to discuss any of these topics with our team. Now, on behalf of AFCEA International, it's my extreme pleasure to introduce Brigadier General Mark D. Miles, Deputy Commanding General, Cyber Center of Excellence from Fort Eisenhower, Georgia. General Miles is uniquely qualified to provide all of us with the strategic insights into achieving decision superiority over our adversaries as we seek to protect our critical assets and share information essential to timely decision-making in the ever-changing environment of the Indo-Pacific AOR. In fact, prior to his recent assignment to the Cyber Center of Excellence, he spent several years commanding the 516th Signal Brigade, responsible for installing, managing, and defending Army networks throughout the Indo-Pacific area of operations. Then he served as Director of Operations J3 at Joint Force Headquarters, DoD Information Networks. He is known for his extensive experience in developing solutions to enhance and support the dynamic and complex environment of command and control, specifically the requirements we need to meet in order to be successful winners of this decision superiority contest. He is a true thought leader. And now, without further ado, please give a warm welcome to Brigadier General Mark Miles.
All right, aloha and good morning. It's an honor to be here. I want to start out by thanking Mantech for sponsoring this session and thanking AFCEA for bringing the team all together. And thank everybody here for coming out. I know this is the final day, so I'm looking at a room of people with good endurance and that love what they do and love the profession that we're in and the challenge that we're taking on together. And also honored to kind of represent the last two words of the AFCEA theme for the week, the pacing challenge. And that's what I'm going to address today. I've given a version of this talk. Here we go. I was wondering where that was. Okay, I've given a version of this talk a few times. And I've geared it today to the Army crowd, but I've given this for a conference sponsored by our Australian partners and to ADF in Canberra. I've given a version of this topic and this talk to a bunch of congressional staffers as we were defending major projects in the Indo-Pacific, and then 2 different times at industry-focused conference sessions here in the U.S., once in San Diego, once in D.C. In the construct that I use, is I'm going to outline a very simple way to look at information advantage. And then I'm going to use it as a way to talk through some use cases that are relevant in the Indo-Pacific and are very focused on our pacing challenge or the threat that we have now that we're encountering, especially in the cyber domain, that we are encountering every single day. So as mentioned, I'm kind of in between jobs, or not in between. I'm the deputy commander here. But 4 weeks ago, I was the director of command and control communications and cyber at U.S. Indo-PACOM. For those of you not familiar, that's the combatant command that has responsible for all the DoD forces and the mission in the Pacific AOR. And I had I had a 7-day break between that job and coming in here. And with that 7 days, I was able to focus on something I enjoy doing, my hobby, which may resonate with a crowd like this, is, I enjoy training a large language model. That's kind of what I do for fun. Sorry. Of course, my large language model is a 5-year-old boy named Jacob. But he's at the right age to kind of show me that I'm not good at that and some of the flaws. And just real quick examples of where I'm not good at information advantage in my own home. So about 2 months ago, my wife and I took the family to Japan. An engagement with, sponsored by the Japanese Joint Staff, J6, who I got to be very close with over the last 2 years. We were able to get our families together a couple times. But in the process of getting our 5-year-old ready to go, we realized that, again, this boy, most of his life has been in Hawaii. He didn't know the word for pants. So we're trying to get him, to put pants on for the flight. Not cool with that. He didn't really love the fact that he had to put pants on, and he also didn't know the word. Like, I don't want to wear longs. His only reference point was shorts. So not sure I set him up to make the best decisions when you're on the East Coast and the winter hits. While we were there, and if anybody here ever has the opportunity, especially if you have kids, to go to Japan, there is so many great things to do in Japan for kids. And I loved all the chances I got to go there, especially in and around Tokyo. And they have a few science museums, and I'll tell you that one of the museums had a whole display on weather phenomena that really resonated with Jacob. Really resonated with my 5-year-old. Especially there's a whole thing on tsunamis, which I like. I really want to raise a child that's interested in STEM, that, it's only 5, but love the fact that he likes science. But But unfortunately, it poisoned that large language model to the point where he had developed a little bit of a phobia of tsunamis, which isn't great when you live on an island. So we went for about 2 weeks of, it wasn't, I don't want to go to the beach because I'm worried about a giant wave. It was anytime we're below like the 3rd floor in Hawaii, his new decision process involved being scared that there was going to be a tsunami that affected our island. So danger in using these models, in probably I just undercut maybe the authority or any reason you had to listen to me for the rest of the speech, because maybe he's not good at large language models. But I'll tell you why why and what I just really drew on for the material for this and for what we do. So I did 2 years there at Indo-Pacific, 2 years focused on our most technologically advanced threat that our nation has ever planned against, has ever encountered. 2 years focused on a threat whose stated objective is to alter the global rules and alter the global rules-based order that assures freedom and prosperity for us, for our allies and partners, and for our children. So in that context, I ask you what capability wins against that type of adversary? What capability wins against somebody going to bring that capability? What capability wins, or what wins against a first world advanced technological rival? Or let me put a different context, look at a different lens that many of us have looked at. In another part of the world, what allows a nation that is overmatched, a partner, an ally, a partner of ours, that is overmatched in just about every domain from a manpower and resources standpoint, what allows that nation to fight and win in Eastern Europe today? And I'll tell you that the simple 7 words I have up there, which again, to me encapsulates what information advantage is, and that is the ability to make better decisions faster. Now, I said information advantage, so the term of art that our boss in the Pacific preferred was decision dominance when he spoke. Information advantage is ADP 3-13. That is our Army term. It's very deliberate in there that we don't, the other terms aren't Army terms of art, but that is, so I'm leaning into the information advantage, but it's information advantage that leverages the ability to have some kind of decision superiority or decision dominance on the modern battlefield. So this, again, like I said in the beginning, this is not I'm not doing a doctrine speech, but if you are interested in our doctrine, if you came here because you saw, information advantage, I'm interested in that and I want to talk about that, I'll refer you to Colonel John Agnello, who quite literally wrote the book on this, ADP 3-13. He's probably in the audience here today. He's on the Global. I encourage you to if you want a deep doctrinal discussion on the topic. So I'm going to use this model though. So here the most important word up there is decisions, and I'll get to that in a minute. But I want to focus on 3 of the other words of those 7 to kind of break down and do a framework and a construct. And the first one of those words those are the 3 words. I want to focus on ability, better, and faster, because each of those has an important ramification, an important meaning as we are not only looking at, running through war games that are relevant in the Indo-Pacific, but running through current in the cyber domain, force on force and action on action that we do every day. So first, ability. So when you talk about can we execute command and control, can we execute information advantage, or can we use information advantage to execute some kind of decision superiority? It starts with our ability on the battlefield, and that, in a lot of cases, is good old-fashioned pace planning. A lot of cases for the communications officers in the room, that is your core. That is your not just officers, obviously, all of our communications forces across the Army and at echelon. That is just good planning. That is making sure going in every scenario you know what the threats are and you're prepared to counter it. For a lot of our industry partners, That is the next-gen technology that allows us to fight in that complex environment. That is the research into waveforms. That is the pivot, the now pivot to persistent low Earth orbit satellites, and what that rapidly does to how we execute assured C4, or how we build good PACE plans, an area that we can never stop looking at and building. And I ask, as I run through all three of these, my big hope in this context is that everyone here sees themselves somewhere in here, and a lot of our industry partners especially can see themselves in this ability portion of this construct, and a lot of our research and development institutions and organizations. So ability, important, obviously. Without the ability to execute decisions on the battlefield, the other two don't really matter. But I'll tell you, you can also, in a first world scenario, for a variety of reasons, you could have both parties, both rivals, both adversaries, if you will, both can have the ability to execute command and control. So that interesting, important, never will take our eye off that ball. But who's better and who's faster is really the area that gives you that superiority. So I'm going to start with better. And there's a lot of meat to making better decisions. And I put out two broad categories there. The whole idea of decision science, which there are books and books and books on decision science and how you want to approach it. I'm going to show one construct in a minute that our Heinz College at Carnegie Mellon that runs the executive leader development program and the decision DDL the decision leadership course uses. But the idea behind using metrics, using data to make informed and good decisions. Second, data architecture. So thinking about where our data is, how our data is aligned, how our networks are configured, and where we're drawing that data from in some cases, and then how we are utilizing that to feed some kind of decision process is all about, to me, making better decisions. And again, as stated, I pulled a construct with permission. Talked to him, said I was going to do this. I was at the course last week. I like this. If you Googled decision science, you'd come up with like a dozen different models, at least, that all look similar like this. The whole idea of having data, drawing insights from it, that hopefully that draw some action that's productive for your organization, and then you've got to be able to evaluate the outcome before you reevaluate how your data is drawn. And a common flaw, again, pulling from our DDL team at Carnegie Mellon, a common flaw here at even any organization is to focus first on the data. Maybe because that's at the top of this model, and maybe they make you look at that way because people read from top to bottom. Where really, instead of action, I believe you could substitute the word decision, and that's where we need to start. And that's where, when I talk through the use cases and where I talk through really the application of information advantage, it becomes not only relevant, but it becomes timely, and it becomes something that we in this room can impact inside of the next 2 years, inside of the 2026, 2027 timeframe. So if you start at the bottom, so let's start with a decision. Let's start with what decision that I hope to make as a commander, or I hope to enable as a key enabler to a commander on the battlefield at whatever echelon, and then work your way back. Okay, what data feeds that? Like, how does that data need to be aligned? What insights do I want to be able to pull from data? And then, am I collecting that data now? Is there some kind of way we need to alter our model? Is there some kind of inputs to that process that'll help drive that data, and then be able to be flexible to really understand the outcomes that those decisions are made once you put it into practice and rehearsing. And notice, none of that I say the words artificial intelligence or machine learning. Again, Mark Miles' opinion, we're too quick to drag that piece of that, and I'm going to talk about that real briefly in a second, under faster. But getting the decisions right, making smarter decisions, identifying what those decisions are and how critical they are, and then how we're aligned to execute those is an extremely critical step. In again, all three of these being meant to be able to work in parallel. But if you don't get the actual decision and the processes right that support it, speeding it up isn't going to give you a lot of advantages, again, against an advanced adversary that's running through the same cycles and doing the same evaluation that we're executing. All right, so then the last one, so there's a better decision. And then faster, I wrote advanced tools here, example are AI ML tools. I'd also argue from iterating on this a number of times in the Pacific, in some war games, in some real-time scenarios, obviously normally executed at a higher classification level, but there's also a process aspect to faster. There's even when you get a good decision in place, even when you work through the important organizational evaluation, the process, the workforce alignment, the data architecture, even when you work through all that to support better decisions and improve that space on the battlefield, there are still, when it comes to getting faster, there are often processes, and I could give a number of examples, even what we've done, but how we've, part of even evaluating lessons learned from other crises from our foxhole out in the Pacific. All right, so there you go. That's the general construct. What I really wanted to focus on here in the next maybe 7 or 8 minutes were a couple use cases, and as I said earlier, to hopefully get everybody here to see themselves in some of these use cases. Wrong button. Okay. In 3 Indo-Pacific, and there are a myriad of ones we could bring up. I think this is critical in identifying what decisions you're trying to make. So we'll go into that a little bit on these. But also 3 use cases that stand out in requirements documents coming out of the Pacific today, and if people are familiar with the Pacific Deterrence Initiative, even the special funding that's aligned against capabilities in the Pacific, are largely focused around 3 of these as some of the major efforts in use cases used. So first is fires, executing fires in the Pacific, and walking through it from ability, better, and faster. We have an initiative in the Pacific, or had, my old team has an initiative in the Pacific that is they refer to as the Joint Fires Network. A lot of our team here, a lot of the floor are already partners on that endeavor as we work through trying to do a theater-wide joint fires construct. So we'll start with ability to walk through this construct. Do we have the ability today to execute joint fires at a theater level? Sure we do. Yeah, each service has a theater, like USERPAC is a theater fire cell, the Air Force has the Air Operations Center, the AOC, the Navy has the MOC. There's processes in place that we rehearse to delegate fires from at the joint level down to those organizations, then execute them as a service. Can it be better? So the next category, absolutely, and I'll tell you that is a wicked, wicked hard problem. And that is all as many of you know, because you're helping solve that. And just from thinking through how your data is aligned, thinking, in the ranges that we have today and in the different ways that we have to engage targets and the number of targets that we're talking about at the scale that would be required in the Indo-Pacific region. Thinking through, you'd take target quality data from a radar that's located somewhere on the land in the first island chain. Is it a satellite that happens to be flying at mid-Earth orbit that's collecting data that's maybe going to inform the shooter, that's maybe looking at the same target? Is it the airplane? Is it the surveillance? Is it the UAV? Is it the MQ-9 that's flying over the Taiwan Strait? Is it, and it's probably all of those, so then your system better be able to identify who's got the best data. because all due respect to the incredible problems that are being solved in the Ukraine, but the target set's different, and the target set's faster, and the target set's likely more on the move that we're talking about, more real time. Where your target was 5 minutes ago is not as interesting as working through all that at scale and at distance for sensors that are maybe located thousands of miles apart, that have to be able to do that differentiation and that data updating. Pulling from data at multiple classification levels from multiple areas, and then making the decision on how it's, whether it's a LRASM close by, whether it's a HIMARS, whether it's a ballistic missile from a longer distance away, making the decision on firing platform, which those are all across different services, doing the BDA to go back and inform, so that you inform the data to make a better decision on the next round. It is a difficult problem, and I'll tell you a problem that that U.S. Indo-PACOM's, with the help of the services, and a lot of it with the help of the Army through Project Convergence, has made a lot of progress on over the last year. So very encouraged at where we are, but that's where, in the joint fires example, the better becomes tougher. Faster, I would argue we've got to get the better worked out before you're really diving into the faster. But again, the tools, partnering with a lot of the research and development organizations and a lot of our key industry partners, a lot of tools focused on how we leverage machine learning, artificial intelligence to speed those decisions. Okay, second one, contested logistics. Another wicked hard problem. Is there an ability? On this one, I would say at the service level, yes. So check mark. The Army has a theater sustainment command in the Pacific, as many in this room know. And then the Navy has a similar organization. Air Force's is more regional, but at the service level, the contested logistics is something we can execute today. I would say if you're looking at a theater capability from a joint level, it's an area we need to work on, and I don't know if I'd firmly put it in an ability that we have today. And when you think about not only the joint nature, the inherently requirement of a joint nature against an adversary like that, but the tyranny of distance, we like to say in the Pacific, and where your supply lines are, how vulnerable they are, and then where your key locks are, where your key logistics hubs are, working through and establishing some kind of joint logistics capability in the contested side, something we need to continue to focus on and work on as far as having the ability to make those decisions. On the better, this is a tough data problem for two reasons. One, I mentioned on the fires, you've got data from a few different classification levels. For logistics, you have data from a myriad of different security boundaries, and even on the unclassed side, a myriad of different sources you trust at different levels. So you've got to you're making decisions on the contested logistics from everything from straight unclassed that you have very little confidence in, but you have to use databases from somewhere where the shipping containers are, Matson, et cetera, all the way up to your top secret intel that's kind of informing you on threat against your supply lines. Pulling all of that data, that hopefully the architectures support it, the data is positioned correctly, into a model that informs those contested logistics decisions at a joint level is again, a difficult problem, is one that gets a lot of attention during every time we exercise, and I'll say every iteration we do and get a little better at it, but an area that, especially as we get toward a green check mark on the ability to do it, an area we can and will continue to grow as a nation and as a force. And then faster, in the contested logistics, a lot of the faster is about predictive models and predictive tools that can help identify, again, due to the distances and the time it takes to sail something, 4,000 miles from the West Coast to the first island chain. Having some predictive where, what's going to break from a maintenance standpoint, or what do our magazine depths look like for any key firing platforms, or to get a little darker, what are our casualty estimates for backhaul and blood flow? That is where tools that get into mining our data and being predictive so that we can pre-position come into play. And then finally, the cybersecurity, and the one that I am most comfortable with, because that's the domain I fought for my time over there, in an area that I've really worked in for most of my last decade of my career. The ability, do we have the ability against a first world adversary to execute cybersecurity at scale? I'll tell you, we make a lot of assumptions when we exercise. I would give us a maybe. There are a lot of areas that we can focus. A lot of tools and help that we need from industry to help us get better at that, specifically the ability. And let me give you a concrete example. The amount of data that we collect across our joint networks today, but even if we just, let's focus on Army and DISA, since we have a huge reliance on DISA for our long-haul circuits, the amount of data we collect, just metrics on health of the network and sensors at each of our firewalls and our security boundaries, is enormous today. And I'll say a lot of it we don't use, from sitting in a seat at Fort Meade and sitting out in the Pacific, that we could and that we're working on. So let's add actually our exquisite maneuver forces that come with some incredible equipment and come with a whole myriad of sensors that we have very well planned out where they would be employed at the key cyber terrain that we find that is valuable or is critical across the Pacific. Employing those sensors, making the assumption that we have the data backhaul, and for this forum, I'll just say it's more than 40 of those teams, of those elements that are forecast or planned as part of our O plan. So let's make the assumption that we have the data backhaul capability to even get all the new metrics on top of what we're collecting today, to inform some organization, probably at Fort Meade, that informs some kind, that has some kind of compute power and the tools available to let us operate at the pace that the adversary is going to be operating in the cyber domain. That is an area where I'm concerned about the ability at the theater level. And as an aside, a second order ramification of that, especially if you're out here in a uniform wear and you're going back to an echelon that's closer to the edge and is fighting, that puts more onus on understanding cybersecurity, understanding these capabilities, and puts more onus on the people running in governing and protecting the networks forward until we can continue to work out that ability as a nation, as a joint force, to be able to react to action, counteraction with that level of adversary. Better, the whole idea of data saturation that I kind of referenced in do we have the ability, our ability to make better decisions is a full on the every service, but now sitting back here at the schoolhouse excited about taking this on as part of the CCOE team. There's a whole .mil-PF piece of making better cybersecurity decisions. The good thing is, and again, a lot of with our industry partners, I think we know what those decisions are. So unlike some of the other wicked hard problems that we got to work through, I think we know what decisions are possible based on best practices for network owners everywhere. And we've got a pretty good idea about what data we would need to collect, analyze, and turn around into decisions. So it is just about doing the .mil-PF approach to be able to do that. And then faster is interesting, and again, this will be a Mark Miles take on it. A lot of attention. Even read a couple books that talk about the new threats on our networks due to artificial intelligence, machine learning, and I'm definitely not going to stand up here and discount any of that because it's written by people much smarter than me. And yes, it's true that anybody with an attitude and IP address now that is good with a AGI or some kind of mature large language model can even have it write code for them to have a more agile, effect-based capability against a network. But I also say that if there's an area where these tools, if there's a unique thing on the cyber defense piece, is that we have a mountain of data that I kind of alluded to earlier that we historically haven't put into use, that we just haven't had the tools or the ability to turn that around and inform our defense and make us more agile. If there's an area that is ripe for maturation with the injection of some kind of machine learning, artificial intelligence, I would argue, especially in DoD, it is the cybersecurity and the cyber defense side. So, yeah, the threat's going to get bigger, but I'm an optimist when it comes to what we are going to be able to do over these next few years from a being able to use and leverage much of that data that we've already collected. All right. In conclusion, I appreciate the time, and hopefully we get a couple questions here on some of these constructs. Some of these, like I said, there were a bunch of other use cases. The last thing I'll leave you with is the urgency sense. Again, the pacing challenge being the last two words of the AFCEA theme here. That is one thing I'll tell you from working in the Pacific AOR. Worked for General Flynn a couple times. Obviously, he right now is the USERPAC commander. Worked closely with USERPAC for the last 2 years, but absolutely emanating out of everything that comes to the Indo-PACOM headquarters is a sense of urgency and a timeline, a 26-27 timelining. That's not dictated by budgets, not dictated by goals or objectives as much in the Pacific as it's dictated by the adversary and the stated goals and objectives in writing, in 5-year plans written by potential threats and rivals in the Pacific. And everything I talked about today, everything I hit, they're hard, but they are solvable in those timelines. This is largely technology that that exists today, industry best practice to be leveraged today. It's a scale and it's a complexity that in a lot of cases is unique to the DoD, but it's all possible and it's all a difference that can be made in that timeline, in that time frame, and support that level of urgency. So again, thank you for coming to the keynote on the last day. Thank you for being part of this, and I look forward to any questions that we may have.
Thank you, sir. We do have some questions from the audience this morning.
All right.
First question, with the influx of Chinese equipment into the infrastructure of our Indo-PACOM partners and allies, how do we ensure that we have secure networks to operate when we have to leverage green infrastructures to build combat power during crisis?
All right, I'm going to answer this probably generically so there's a little bit of a classification boundary that you hit in this topic. For first, Chinese infrastructure and allies and partners is obviously a reality. Just to speak frank dollars and cents, in a lot of cases when it comes to hardware and it comes to subsidies happening at the national level, we're not going to undersell. We're not going to, we can't look a partner, and I won't give individual partners here because I don't want this video to show up somewhere and look like I called somebody out, but partner X in the Pacific, nation X, that probably spent time in, to not understand the economics of their decision making as they rapidly try to modernize internally. So some of that you got to understand. But I'll tell you that an area that helped us from a capacity building, from a partnership perspective, us when I was at US Indo-PACOM, was regardless of where you're getting your hardware equipment, there is one partner in the Pacific that believes in freedom of information sharing, that believes in secure and open communications, not only for your defense establishment, but for your population. And everybody knows who that partner is. So, whoever you bought your system from, when you want help evaluating it, when you want help securing it, there is and continues to be a preferred partner in the Pacific. And that, in a lot of cases, helped us leverage those relationships. And to answer the second part of the question of how we mitigate it, those relationships are a starting point. There are places that we would rely on more than other places, let's just say. So there is a prioritized list and a targeted list of where we would be most concerned about the ability, I'll just say the ability to deny us in the cyber domain in certain areas. And that absolutely not only gets our attention, but increases our partnership activities and increases our presence in those particular areas. Hopefully I answered the question.
Thank you, sir. Next question. Going back to your first use case, fires, how is the Joint Fires Network going to make sense of and transport the massive amounts of sensor data to the best shooter with the best munition?
Hey, if you can answer that question, we got a huge contract for you. That is a wicked hard problem, you know, I believe, and a lot of great work, a lot of partnership initially with DARPA, a lot of partnership with some research and development organizations. It is about, I'll just say, it comes down to efficiency of synchronizing your operational picture. So if let's say you have 12 nodes that are going to inform, because at some level, this isn't every single firing platform across the Pacific AOR needs to be tied into one giant brain. That's not realistic. B, it's not feasible. And C, it's not required. This is about getting custody of the target to the right level to execute. So on the Army side, a FATAD still drives a lot of our firing, will continue to drive a lot of the firing. At some echelon, hey Army, you've got custody of this target. Hey Air Force, hey Navy, hey Cyber Command with your non-kinetic, you don't need to execute that target. We'll turn your resources somewhere else. Army's got it. But even in that context, to the point of the question, there is at least let's say, to stay unclassified, it's more than 10. There's at least double-digit platforms that you need to synchronize over long distances with a lot of data. So it's about efficiency of that data. It's about that data structure. It's about what of that needs to be and how rapidly does that data need to be communicated over whatever platform that you have. And obviously, the less data you need to pass, the better to keep that picture synchronized across those distances.
Thank you, sir. We have time for one more quick question here. Can you share any particular insights or an insight that you gained as J6 that changed your perspective from your days as a commander of the 516th?
Yes. The reliance on critical infrastructure, which again, well publicized, but the how to execute and mitigate that level of threat. So much of the DoD information environment is complex. The cyber environment is complex. You're working as dictated through the Klinger-Cohen Act, every service went and built their own IT infrastructure, which has its own complexities. But they are pretty well defended, and they're hardened. The reliance on critical infrastructure is an enormous concern. And an insight I think that was really reinforced to me a number of times during my 2 years out in the Pacific was the requirement to, one, really understand what those dependencies are. And we used to emphasize that before every exercise at Echelon to the 6 reps from all the services. Where you're going, know, like what power company you're relying on, what telecom, what water company, know that going in so that if there's issues, you're at least tuned to them. And then 2, develop those relationships. So what I found was there are obviously, for all the right reasons, there are very few authorities that we have in DoD to put equipment, as a matter of fact, restrictions in some cases, to put our equipment, put our personnel on any commercial infrastructure. But my experience is there's a huge appetite from the commercial infrastructure providers to partner with us and to share. We ran into very little of the, my network, I don't want, government or any government adjacent or affiliated organizations touching it. Very little of that, a huge appetite to partner. So it was a lot about personalities, and it was a lot about taking time to go out and sit down with the CISOs and the CIOs for some of these major utility providers that really helped mitigate the critical infrastructure piece. So that was probably the biggest insight that was reinforced to me during that time. All right. Well, thanks again.
All right, just a couple of things. It was interesting for me to learn that everything you know about LLM comes from your 5-year-old son Jacob, and now you're driving the entire Army with that knowledge and that path.
I will say, sir, he's got really strong, and I wish I could hack this system, his desire to kinetically engage his little brother. If I could infect those decisions, I would.
And I think I speak for everybody here in the audience, but we are very glad you have your longs on today, so thank you very much. No, seriously, Mark. Hey, thanks for outlining the importance of the ability to make better decisions faster. This is key for our mission command and for our future and how to leverage technology. But you also laid out and broke out a construct to help us to impact a path to improve that ability across our force. So thank you very much. In lieu of a speaker gift, FC is going to make a donation to the Signal and Cyber Corps Historical Museum Society on your behalf. So thank you very much, Mark. We appreciate it. All right, now teammates. Teammates, ladies and gentlemen, please refer to your screens or to your show guide or to the app to see all the various breakout sessions that are going to be presented this morning. At 10:15, we're going to have an important non-commissioned officer panel empowering the enlisted force for today's future fight with insights from some truly outstanding NCOs across the force. And at 12:45, our closing keynote, Lieutenant General Maria Barrett, will be closing the conference out this afternoon. And now we're going to move into a break in the exhibit areas so that you can continue this conversation down there with our industry partners. Please take a moment and go out and see our expanded exhibit area just beyond the main hall. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your morning.